She walked away, and now you're left with the silence, the weight of the unknown, and the echo of everything unsaid. But what if I told you, this moment, this exact one, could be your greatest turning point, not the end of the story, but the start of a powerful transformation, not for her, for you. Welcome to the Everlasting Stoic. This is where wisdom meets resilience, where heartbreak is not a curse but a forge. If you're looking for loud, reactive advice, this isn't the place. But if you want deep, masculine truth rooted in the unshakable core of Stoicism and self-mastery, then stay. This journey is for you. Be sure to subscribe if you're ready to reclaim your mind, your strength, and your sense of direction. Like the video so more seekers can find this space. And stay to the end. We're not just here to talk about getting her back. We're here to talk about something even better, getting yourself back. Now, let's begin. 1. Emotional discipline is everything. She left. Maybe it was gradual. Maybe it was sudden. But now you sit in the aftershock, trying to understand what went wrong, what you could have done, or if you should say something, do something, anything, to turn it around. But before you act, pause, because your first battle isn't against the loss. It's not even against her absence. Your first battle is against your own emotions. When the Stoics spoke of power, they didn't speak of dominance or conquest. They spoke of the one thing that defines a truly strong human being: control over the self. Not the world, not others, not fate, just you. That is where the empire begins. The man who panics when she walks away is not in love. He is enslaved. Enslaved to his craving for validation, to the illusion of certainty, to the desire to be chosen at all costs. That's not strength. That's dependency in disguise. The Stoics called these emotions passions, not in the modern romantic sense, but in the sense of being passive, acted upon. You are not meant to be acted upon by your desires or grief or jealousy. You are meant to act from principle, from poise, from clarity. So when she leaves, the first thing you must reclaim is your composure. This doesn't mean pretending you don't care. It doesn't mean numbing out or playing some false game of indifference. No. It means feeling the full weight of your pain and not being ruled by it. It means not sending that long text. It means not calling in desperation. It means not explaining or defending yourself. Not because she doesn't matter, but because you do. You see, when she walked away, what truly mattered wasn't her decision. It was your reaction. Did you collapse? Or did you pause, breathe, and choose how to respond? In that gap between the trigger and your reaction lies the very heart of Stoic mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It's not just a quote, it's a strategy. It's a way of life. And here's what they don't tell you. Women remember how a man reacts under pressure. Not how he speaks when everything is calm. Not the flowers or the dinners or the playlists. But how he carries himself when she pulls away. In that moment, she sees your essence. Will you crumble? Will you chase? Will you make her the sun around which your whole world orbits? Or will you become unmoved because your world is centered in yourself? Let me be clear. Emotional discipline isn't about hiding. It's not repression. It's redirection. It's acknowledging the storm inside you and calmly taking the helm anyway. It's looking your pain dead in the eye and saying, "You will not define me. You will refine me." The modern world makes this difficult. You're bombarded with messages telling you to express everything, to let it out, to act on impulse and call it authenticity. But authenticity without discipline is just chaos wearing a name tag. The Stoic man doesn't deny his feelings. He shapes them like fire forged into steel. Think of the greatest warriors, not the reckless berserkers, but the ones who move slowly, deliberately, with precision. The samurai, the Spartans, the Roman centurions. Their strength wasn't in wildness, it was in restraint. And restraint is your edge. She's expecting you to react, to crumble, to beg, to try to fix things, to prove your worth. Don't give her that story. Rewrite it. Let your silence speak volumes. Let your calm unsettle her expectations. Let your discipline become your attraction. You see, the man who holds his center in the midst of emotional upheaval is a man who becomes unforgettable, not for his words, but for his presence. And presence begins with discipline. If you can sit in your own heartbreak, in the silence of her absence, and not flee from it, you are already stronger than most. And here's where the transformation truly begins. Because emotional discipline is not just about getting through the pain. It's about transmuting it into power. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't chase approval, but radiates value, who doesn't grasp for control, but embodies composure, and most of all, who doesn't need her return to validate his worth. She walked away, then let her. But let her walk away from a man who stood tall in the ruins, who chose not to break, who stared into the mirror of heartbreak and rebuilt himself from within. Now, before we continue, I want you to reflect. When you faced emotional chaos, did you control your reactions? Or did your reactions control you? Drop your answer in the comments, not just for me, but for yourself. And if you're ready to reclaim your power, type this below. I will master my emotions before they master me. Let's see who's serious. Now, let's move deeper into the game, because discipline is just the beginning. 2. Create distance to reset the narrative. There's a temptation, almost a compulsion, to close the gap when someone pulls away from us. You feel it in your chest, in your mind, the need to reach out, the need to clarify, to make peace, to check in, to prove that you're still worthy. That instinct, it's not love, it's fear dressed as attachment. But if she walked away, understand this, you must not follow. You must create distance, not to punish, not to manipulate, but to reset the entire narrative. Because without space, there can be no shift, no change, no evolution in her perception of you, or your perception of yourself. Most people are addicted to immediacy. They think closure is a text away. They think affection can be begged back. But the Stoic doesn't rush. He doesn't scramble for comfort. He knows that power, like gravity, is invisible, but always present, and nothing is more powerful than withdrawing your energy with dignity. When you remove yourself, you don't just give her space. You give yourself clarity, because closeness can be deceptive. The longer you orbit someone who no longer values you, the more distorted your own self-worth becomes. You start shrinking to fit into their world, forgetting you were once the architect of your own. Distance interrupts that cycle. It gives you time to remember who you were before her validation became your oxygen. It allows you to rebuild your frame, not for her return, but for your rebirth. But here's the deeper truth. Creating distance isn't just a physical act. It's an energetic declaration. It says, I do not chase what devalues me. I do not plead to be chosen. I create space because I respect myself enough to step back and recalibrate. This is not the same as playing games. Games are manipulative. Games are rooted in fear and ego. What we're talking about is principle. It's the act of pulling back, not to create curiosity, but to reclaim your gravity. When you're always present, always available, always trying to fix your presence, becomes background noise. Predictable, dull. You become an emotional servant rather than a sovereign man. But when you remove your presence from someone who once had access to it, something changes. You become noticed again. And more importantly, you notice yourself again. You may think that withdrawing makes you look weak. It's the opposite. Weakness is clinging. Weakness is reaction. Strength is the man who knows when to walk away, not with bitterness, but with calm. Distance is also the birthplace of perspective. It's where you stop seeing her as flawless and begin seeing the full picture. Maybe there were red flags you ignored. Maybe her leaving wasn't a betrayal, but a revelation. Maybe her absence wasn't a punishment, but a permission slip to begin again. And if she's ever going to reassess you, it will be in your absence, not in your begging. When you're always present, she never has a reason to question, to miss, to feel. But in the silence, she's left alone with the echo of your absence. She will think, she will wonder, and whether she returns or not is irrelevant. Because you didn't create distance to win her back, you created it to win yourself back. Let your silence become a mirror. Let her see who she was in your life and who you are without her. And now I ask you, have you ever created true distance after someone walked away? Not as a trick, but as a sacred act of self-respect. Let me know in the comments. Share your story, your challenge, or your commitment. Or if you're choosing now to step back with poise and clarity, write this: I pull away to find myself, not to be found. Because that, my friend, is the beginning of your transformation. Now, let's talk about how to cultivate your next weapon: indifference, and how to wield it with grace. 3. Embrace indifference with grace. Indifference. To some, it sounds cold, unfeeling, even cruel. But to the Stoic, indifference is not about being heartless. It is about being unshaken. Let's clarify something right now. Stoic indifference is not apathy. It is not a refusal to care. It is caring without attachment. It is being able to say, I love, but I do not cling. I value, but I do not beg. I feel, but I am not ruled. When she left, you likely experienced a hurricane of emotion, pain, confusion, longing, maybe even rage. That's natural. But what matters most is not whether those feelings existed. It's whether they enslaved you. And the path out of that enslavement begins with learning how to be indifferent to what you cannot control. Epictetus wrote, "Some things are up to us and some are not." This is the core of all Stoic thought. You don't control her feelings. You don't control her choices. You don't even control whether she thinks of you again. What you control is how you show up in your own soul. Indifference, then, is not passive. It is an active separation between your peace and external events. You are not indifferent because you don't care. You are indifferent because you care more about your own integrity than the outcome. This is what makes indifference powerful. It radiates something few people can resist: groundedness. While others sway in emotion and spiral in fear, the Stoic man stands still. He is a harbor in a storm, a mountain unmoved by weather. To the person who walked away, this energy becomes mystifying. They expect reaction, drama, anguish. When they get calm, grace instead, they are forced to reevaluate. But understand this, it must be genuine. Indifference can't be faked. You can't pretend to not care while checking your phone every hour. You can't claim strength while secretly hoping for a text. That contradiction destroys the very essence of power. To be truly indifferent, you must practice detachment from outcomes. This doesn't mean giving up. It means you stop measuring your worth by someone else's decisions. If she comes back, good. If she doesn't, also good. Why? Because your peace is not conditional. It is cultivated from within. This is where your masculinity matures. When your calm is not a tactic, but a truth. When you no longer need her love to feel complete. When your validation isn't outsourced to another person's return, but rooted in the self-respect you build every single day. This is indifference, not bitterness, not numbness, but stillness. It is the absence of internal war. So let others chase. Let them panic. Let them fall into frantic cycles of proving and pleading. You will walk another path. You will walk the Stoic path. And in doing so, whether she comes back or not, you will have already won. Because the man who needs nothing controls everything. Now let's take this foundation and go even deeper. What happens when you stop explaining, stop trying, stop waiting, and instead start growing? Let's talk about that next. 4. Let growth be your response. When someone walks away from you, the world tries to pull you in two directions, either chase or hate, either plead for their return or bury yourself in resentment. But both responses are weak in different ways. One says, I need you to be whole. The other says, I'm too hurt to stay open. Neither is growth, neither is power. But there's a third response, a quieter, rarer path. And that is this: use it. Use her leaving as fuel. Let it ignite your evolution, not to impress her, not to get her back, but because this is the moment the world just handed you a mirror. And it's asking, what now? Who are you without her eyes on you? Who are you when no one is validating your worth in real time? Growth is not a tactic. It's not a game you play to win someone over. It's a rebellion against the version of yourself that needed someone else's approval to feel whole. Growth is your only dignified response to rejection. Now, let me be clear. Growth isn't a montage. It's not quick. It's not glamorous. And it's not about external gains alone. Yes, hit the gym. Yes, level up your finances, our appearance, your environment. But that's surface. What matters more is the internal refinement. Are you more patient today than yesterday? Do you hold your frame in uncomfortable conversations? Have you stopped living from impulse and started acting from principle? That is the Stoic path, and it's not linear. Some days you'll feel like you're regressing. You'll want to reach out. You'll want to rewind the clock. You'll want closure or validation. And that's exactly when the fire is hottest. And exactly when you forge a stronger mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Her absence isn't your enemy. It's your training ground." And here's the twist no one tells you. When you truly start growing, not performatively, but fundamentally, you begin to see the past differently. You stop asking, "Why did she leave?" and start asking, "Why was I so dependent on her staying?" That's where the power is. You start realizing that her walking away was not the origin of your pain. It was the exposure of a fracture that was already there. You just didn't want to see it. Her presence distracted you from your own lack of self-possession. Her absence forced you to face it. And from that pain, something new is born. A version of you that isn't built for temporary affection, but for enduring strength. A man who doesn't just react to life, but leads himself through it. Who isn't blown by the winds of other people's choices, but sails by his own compass. And when you embody this, everything changes. Whether she returns or not becomes secondary. Because the man she walked away from, he's gone. And the man who stands in his place, he's not someone you chase. He's someone others gravitate toward. So let your evolution be quiet. Let it be steady. Let your growth make the noise your emotions used to make. Don't announce your progress. Become it. Let others guess what happened. Let them wonder how you rebuilt so completely, so calmly, so deliberately. That mystery is the reward of growth that comes from solitude. Because the man who builds himself in silence speaks loudest with his presence. And now, with that foundation being laid, it's time to talk about a paradox most men don't understand: how to be present without being available. Let's go deeper. 5. Be present, but unavailable. 5. To be present is to exist fully in your life, to be grounded in your space, to walk with intentionality, to radiate energy, confidence, peace. But to be available, that's something different. That means being open to anyone, anytime. Being reachable, responsive, waiting with bated breath for their attention. The Stoic path is about holding attention between the two, being fully present but selectively unavailable. This is not a tactic. This is an orientation. It means you are so rooted in your mission, in your standards, in your sense of self, that people can feel you, but they can't just access you. You're not ghosting. You're not cold. You're simply sovereign, busy building, focused, unshaken. And here's the nuance: when you master this, you stop chasing. Not because you're indifferent to connection, but because you've become magnetic. Presence says, I'm here. Unavailability says, but you don't get all of me for free. The modern world has glorified hyper-responsiveness. We think if we don't reply quickly, or if we don't engage fast, we'll lose interest, miss the opportunity, or appear arrogant. But speed is not value. In fact, it's the exact opposite. What is abundant is cheap. What is rare is sacred. When you respond to every ping, every message, every flicker of attention, you're training people to treat you like a product. But when you move with depth, with deliberation, when your attention is earned, you become a man of substance. She walked away? Good. Now stop being instantly reachable. Because your time, your energy, your presence, it's a gift, not a given. This also applies to your internal availability. How often are you emotionally available to people who haven't earned that level of access? Are you still mentally hosting someone who chose to leave? Are you replaying conversations, hypotheticals, justifications while she's living her life? That's not strength. That's self-abandonment. To be present but unavailable is to live fully in your world and to stop orbiting someone else's. You're in the gym, not thinking about her. You're in your craft, not checking your phone. You're in your solitude, not hoping for a text to save you. And suddenly, you become a man of intrigue again. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you genuinely are hard to distract. That's a man who reclaims gravity. That's a man who flips the script. And understand, women feel this deeply. They feel when your attention is desperate versus when it is selective. They feel when you're trying to force closeness versus when you're radiating purpose. And nothing is more attractive than a man who is available only to those who match his depth. So ask yourself, are you still available to someone who's no longer present in your life? If the answer is yes, it's time to close that door. Not with anger, but with finality. Now, before we move on, I want to hear from you. What's one way you're reclaiming your presence and protecting your availability? Share it below. And if you're committing to this shift, write this in the comments. I exist fully in my world, not hers. Let's raise the standard together. Coming up next, we'll explore something very few men truly understand. How scarcity is not a weakness, but one of your most powerful assets. Let's break that down next. 6. Scarcity drives value. In the economy of human attention, what is rare becomes precious. What is constantly accessible becomes invisible. This isn't manipulation, it's a universal law. And if you don't learn how to apply it to your presence, you'll keep offering your soul at a discount to someone who already walked away. She left. And now you're tempted to make yourself even more visible, more vocal, more proven. But the hard truth, the more you make yourself available after she's withdrawn, the more your value declines in her perception. Why? Because in her absence, your abundance becomes a liability. Every unanswered message, every emotional plea, every breadcrumb you follow tells her the same thing. I am not scarce. I am still yours, even if you've left. And that removes all urgency, all mystery, all respect. But here's the Stoic counterpunch. You become rare, not by disappearing from the world, but by withdrawing your availability, your explanations, your emotional output, and redirecting it inward. You become busy not with distractions, but with development. This scarcity must be authentic. It can't be a performance. True scarcity is not playing hard to get. That's childish. It's about embodying a standard of life that is so focused, so purposeful, so fulfilling, that others feel your absence when they lose access to you. It means you don't respond to every reach out with immediacy. You don't entertain every reconnection attempt. You don't seek out opportunities to remind her you exist. Instead, you exist deeply and let her wonder if she ever really knew you at all. This is what ancient warriors and Stoics understood. Abundance is chosen. Scarcity is earned. And what is earned is value. Look around. The men who are constantly chasing, posting, talking about how they've leveled up after a breakup. They're still giving their energy away for free. They're still performing for someone else's gaze. But the rare man, he disappears into the work, into the silence, into the transformation. And from that void, something happens. People begin to project onto your absence. They wonder. They imagine. And in many cases, they remember. Because nothing burns in someone's mind quite like the realization that they no longer have access to a man they once took for granted. This is the paradox. When you withdraw genuinely, not spitefully, you create psychological gravity. You don't need to chase, because curiosity becomes your ally. Mystery becomes your presence. You can't control whether she ever returns. But you can control whether the next version of you is too rare, too whole, and too self-respecting to ever settle for half-hearted affection again. Scarcity also reveals truths. It shows you who will reach out without prompting, who will pursue when you're no longer chasing, who values you for more than what you provide. And if no one steps forward, good, because that silence is proof that your worth was contingent on your effort, not your essence. And essence should never be negotiated. So I ask you, Are you still offering full access to someone who made you an option? Are you still seeking to be understood by someone who stopped trying to understand you? Let the answer be your wake-up call. You are not just valuable. You are finite. And when you begin treating your attention, your time, your presence as rare, others will either rise to meet it or fall away. Either outcome is clarity. Let that be enough. Now let's build on this idea, because when you embody scarcity, you start to attract differently. You start to demand better. And that's where we go next. 7. High standards attract high value. There's a reason the Stoics placed such a high emphasis on virtue. It wasn't just about being morally upright. It was about being anchored in something uncorruptible. Something that didn't fluctuate with the world's chaos. And for the modern man, one of the most powerful expressions of virtue is standard. When you raise your standards internally and externally, you stop bleeding value in low-quality relationships. You stop engaging with people who treat your presence as a convenience. You stop seeking connection from those who haven't earned it. Let me be absolutely clear. A high-value man is not one who gets everyone's attention. He's one who has the discipline to reject attention that doesn't meet his standard. Most men operate from a place of scarcity in themselves. They fear raising the bar because they fear no one will reach it. So they lower their boundaries. They become flexible in the wrong places. They allow emotional disrespect in the name of understanding. They tolerate inconsistency because they're afraid of being alone. But being alone is not your enemy. Being surrounded by people who don't honor your standard, that is the real danger. She walked away. That's a form of clarity. And now, the question is not whether she'll come back, but whether if she did, you would even still accept the version of her that once left. Because the man you are becoming should not be a version she recognizes. You should be unrecognizable in your growth, your self-respect, your silence. So much so that if she did return, she would have to rise to meet a new standard, or be politely left in the past. That is not bitterness. That is elevation. High standards filter out low-effort energy. When your boundaries are clear and enforced, you don't have to wonder about someone's intentions. They either meet the mark or they fade away. This is what creates peace. And peace, not passion, is what sustains a man of value. Now ask yourself, what have you been tolerating? What behavior? What inconsistencies? What emotional vagueness have you allowed because you feared being seen as too much or too cold or too demanding? Understand this. What you tolerate, you teach. And if you keep welcoming back half-hearted energy, you are silently saying, this is acceptable. But when you stand firm, when you say, I no longer accept breadcrumbs, I no longer seek to prove myself. I no longer seek to prove myself. I no longer compromise on my peace. You send a ripple through every relationship you touch. People may leave. Let them. Because the ones who stay, the ones who arrive later, the ones who gravitate toward you, they will be of a different caliber. And that's what you've been preparing for all along. Now let me ask you this, and I want your honest reflection. Where in your life have you been lowering your standard just to maintain a connection? Drop it in the comments if you're ready to release it, or if you're fully stepping into this new era. Write this below. My standards are sacred. I rise, and only those who rise with me will remain. Because that is how a Stoic man leads. With quiet strength, with immovable principle, and with unshakable standards. Now, what if she does come back? It's time we prepare your mindset, not for reaction, but for wisdom. Let's dive in. 8. If she returns, decide like a Stoic. Hey, so what if she comes back? This is where most men lose the script. They spend so long in absence, waiting, hoping, checking their phone, that when she finally reaches out, they collapse into emotional reflex. They take her return as validation, as permission to feel whole again, as the happy ending to a long chapter of pain. But you are no longer that man. You don't react to her return. You evaluate it. The Stoic man does not respond to emotion with emotion. He responds to change with principle. And that means, before you even consider accepting someone back into your life, you must first ask, which version of me is she returning to? And who exactly is returning? If she comes back looking for the man she once left, the one who overextended, who tolerated confusion, who blurred his boundaries, then her return is not a reunion. It's a repeat. And you, my friend, have grown too far for reruns. When someone returns, they should meet a new frame. One defined not by loneliness, but by clarity. You're not the same. You've developed internal gravity. You've raised your standards. You're no longer a participant in emotional ambiguity. This is where the Stoic concept of apatheia comes in. Not apathy, but equanimity, emotional balance. You don't greet her with desperation or with anger. You meet her with calm. You let her speak. You observe. You listen, not just to her words, but to her energy, her consistency, her humility. You're not looking for grand apologies. You're looking for alignment. What has she done during the silence? Has she reflected? Has she grown? Is she returning because she missed you? Or because she missed your attention? You don't interrogate. You observe, you let time expose patterns. Because emotion might draw her back, but character is what keeps people aligned. And most importantly, you decide with sovereignty, not with hope, not with fear, not with nostalgia, but with philosophy. The Stoic asks, what is within my control? You cannot control her intentions, but you can control whether you let her into your new, cultivated life. You can control whether her presence supports your peace or disrupts your values. Remember this when you truly evolve. Your presence should come with a cost, and that cost is respect. No one gets back into your life for free. They must meet your current standard, not the one you had when you were emotionally fragmented. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. You only need discernment. And sometimes the most stoic response to someone returning is not to reject or accept, but simply to stand still long enough to see if their actions match their words. If they do, then maybe there is room for a new chapter. If they don't, you close the book. Because when she walked away, she exited the story. And if she returns, it is not your obligation to reprint the past. It is your right to protect the future. Now, let's go even deeper, because this whole journey from heartbreak to healing is about one core transformation: detachment. Let's end where real strength begins. 9. From attachment to autonomy. There is a silent killer behind most heartbreaks. It's not betrayal. It's not distance. It's not incompatibility. It's attachment. Attachment to an outcome. Attachment to a version of the relationship that no longer exists. Attachment to the idea that you are only complete if someone else chooses you. But the Stoic path doesn't cling. It doesn't attach. It connects deeply, but never forgets you are whole, even when others leave. Attachment is the root of emotional slavery. It causes you to shapeshift, to please, to abandon yourself just to hold on to someone else. You mistake intensity for intimacy. You confuse obsession with love. You lose track of your own compass just to stay in someone else's orbit. But autonomy, that is liberation. Autonomy says, I can love you without needing to own you. I can care, but I don't collapse. I am full in myself. And anything you bring to my life is a bonus, not my foundation. This isn't cold, this is healthy. Because when you operate from autonomy, you attract relationships based on respect, not need. And here's the deeper truth. Your healing begins the moment you stop needing them to return for you to be at peace. That is the turning point. When you no longer check your phone for signs, when you no longer replay conversations, when your day is not dictated by a fantasy reconciliation, but by your real-life transformation, you move differently. You stop trying to understand her motives and start understanding your own patterns. You stop wondering if she misses you and start asking why you made her your center. You stop trying to heal through answers and start healing through action. Because autonomy is a muscle. You build it by saying no to what drains you, by spending time alone without being lonely, by doing things for yourself that no one can take away. Your discipline, your mission, your inner dialogue, and in that space, something sacred happens. You realize she never completed you. She only revealed where you'd forgotten to complete yourself. You see, relationships don't break you. They expose where you were already cracked. And now, you rebuild, not to win her back, not to prove her wrong, but because you've remembered who the hell you are. Now let me ask you, what have you been attached to that no longer serves the person you're becoming? Drop your reflection in the comments, or if you're ready to choose autonomy, write this below. I release attachment. I rise with autonomy. Let's see who's walking this path for real. Now, let's bring everything together. Conclusion. So, she walked away, but maybe that was the greatest gift life could have given you, because it forced you to stop outsourcing your peace and to start mastering your response. To trade reaction for reflection, to trade chasing for stillness, to trade attachment for autonomy. This isn't the end of your story. This is where the Stoic journey begins. You don't need her to return. You don't need closure. You don't even need to be understood. You just need this, the quiet, relentless decision to build yourself every day without fanfare, without noise, without begging for anyone's gaze. And when you live like that, you don't chase power. You become it. If this spoke to you, subscribe now to the Everlasting Stoic. This is just the beginning. We go deeper every week. Like the video if it helped you shift, and share your reflections below. Someone out there might need your words to find their own strength. Until next time, hold your ground, walk the Stoic path, and remember, you are the script. Flip it.